Hello again, and thank you very much for coming. Especially thank you to Sue Piper, who's joining us with a knee injury from her bed. Thank you so much, Sue and John and Jerry. Thank you for being here. So I'm gonna start sharing my screen and show the slides. And please let me know when you want me to move the slides. Please.
Okay. Well, just by way of introduction, my name is Jon Kaufman, and Sue Piper and I are co-chairs of the effort to build a JPA for wildfire prevention, and that's what we're going to be talking about. I'm president of the Claremont Canyon Conservancy, and we've been involved mostly on UC land doing vegetation management and general stewardship and trail work for many years. Sue, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm a 1991 fire survivor, and I chair the Oakland Firesafe Council, which, although it says Oakland, really covers Alameda County and actually has members from your group and from Western Contra Costa who come to our meetings.
Okay, so let's move forward to the next slide.
Sure. Can I ask everyone to please mute your microphone if you're not speaking? Thank you.
So why do we need a joint powers agency to manage vegetation and deal with wildfire? There are a number of important reasons. One of them is that the fire danger, as we all know, is increasing immensely. In 1991, there was a huge fire in our area. It was at that point the largest fire in California's history. That's not true anymore. I'm not sure how many fires there are now that are larger, but clearly we've got two of them going on right now. Secondly, we need to work together. This is a regional issue. CAL FIRE has defined the East Bay Hills as a high fire danger area, and requires coordination we have to work together. It's too big for any one jurisdiction to manage. Fire goes where the fuel takes it and where the wind blows it, and doesn't respect city or county lines. So we have to combine our efforts and work together. Okay. Sue, feel free to jump in at any point. What would we do? The first step of a JPA, and let me back up to define a JPA. Under California law, the government code allows various jurisdictions in an area that have a common issue to work together and combine their resources. And there are other JPAs for other purposes in our area. For example, there's one to manage police radios. At one point, each city had its own radio system and they couldn't talk to each other. So they formed a JPA to enable the various police departments to work together. It makes a lot of sense. You wonder why that didn't happen earlier, but now it's solved, and it was solved by a JPA. There's also a JPA for wildfire prevention in Marin County. So we would not be the first to think about a JPA for wildfire. So back up, please. So what a JPA could do would be, first of all, to develop a plan so that we would all be on the same page when it comes to replacing vegetation. We would be able to raise funds by working together. The state and federal governments offer grants. If we were all working together, we could have a better chance of getting money from the state and federal governments. They like the idea of people working together. And once the plan was in place, we could create programs, not only vegetation management, but also defensible space and home hardening programs are things that a JPA could coordinate. And what the actual JPA would do would have to be decided once all the communities got together and decided to move forward. They would decide what to do and how to go about it.
Can I jump in here? one of the things that's missing from what is occurring now is that each jurisdiction does its own thing to a greater or lesser extent. And there really isn't much neighborhood fire break work. It's like individual properties, or like in the city of Oakland does it on the city of Oakland's property. But you know, we're surrounded by many jurisdictions, and if we work together, we can actually make sure that neighborhoods are protected by a neighborhood fire break or defensible space that looks at the neighborhood as a whole and brings all the parties together. And right now, that's very difficult to happen. So a JPA would allow that to happen, and we'd be much safer that way.
Okay, let's move to the next slide. These next two slides are maps of the area that would be included ideally. The red areas and the yellow areas are danger zones, and that's defined by CAL FIRE. Our area runs from the southern end, which you see here in Alameda County, from Fremont and Castro Valley at the south. And on the next slide, you'll see it goes all the way up to the Richmond area in the north. So you want to show the next slide, and you can see the northern end of what could be the JPA that we're talking about. Okay. So the area that we saw on the map includes the following jurisdictions. And you can see that there's a number of them. And on the next slide, you'll see that it includes a number of special districts. The Park District, very important agency because it owns a lot of land. East Bay Municipal Utilities District, the University of California, and there are other agencies that also could be involved. So what we are now doing as a steering committee is talking to people at these various agencies, trying to see if there are people there who would like to explore the idea of a JPA and come together to discuss what such an organization might look like and what it could do. This is who we are. I'm John. You've heard from me and Sue. These are the other people on our steering committee, and you can see that West Contra Costa County is well represented. Sue Duncan, El Cerrito, Sohila, and Jean from this specific area. So we've been working on this project for about a year and a half now, and in a minute you will see what we've done. We have talked with a large number of elected officials and community organizations, and this list are people who have endorsed the idea of coming together to form a JPA. And by the way, this presentation is on our website for those of you who want to look at it in more detail. It's eastbaywildfirejpa.org. eastbaywildfirejpa.org. So you can have a look at who we are and what we're doing. What we're doing now, as I said, is going to the various cities and asking them to come to the table. And many of them are looking at passing a resolution so that it becomes official policy of the city or the county agency to get involved. And this is a resolution that we've begun to circulate, and we've already got El Cerrito has signed on, and Pinole is about to. So others are working on it. A number of cities have said, we're not going to pass a resolution, but count us in. We'll come to the table. We want to join together and talk about forming a JPA. So we're moving forward. And that's who we are. David Early is a consultant. We've been able to raise money and hire PlaceWorks, which is a consulting firm that's done a lot of work with cities on a various number of planning issues. And David Early is our consultant. The money that we've raised has come from individual contributions that and we're using the Oakland Firesafe Council as our fiscal agent because they are a 501c3 organization. and been very generous. Sue has been very generous in offering her organization as a way to collect funds. In addition, we've been able to go to other agencies and ask for money. The Bay Area Air Quality Management District has given us a total now of $60,000, which is terrific because we think that will be enough to get us to the point where a JPA can actually come into being. So why don't we stop there and see if there are questions?
Very good. Thank you very much. Are there any questions about
Yeah,
JPA?
looks like Rebecca and Marilyn.
Yep. Rebecca, please.
Unmute.
What does JPA stand for?
Good question. Joint Power Agency or Joint Power Authority. That's the phrase Joint Power Agency is what's used in the state law, although most people refer to it as an authority.
Thank you.
Marilyn?
Yeah, I wanted to hear a little more about your progress with Pinole. I was going to ask you about Pinole because the very high wildfire zone actually covers the north-facing slope of Sobrante Ridge, which is Pinole.
Right.
So
presentation to Pinole City Council, and the resolution to come to the table is going to be on their consent calendar. I forget when, but it's an upcoming meeting in the next month or so.
that's great.
Yeah. And by the way, if you know people in any of the cities who you think would be a good person to work with, either to add their name as an endorsee or give us a lead to their city council, your help would be very much welcome.
Well, I'm actually in Richmond, just over the Sobrante Ridge, but I do know a couple of people in Pinole, so I'll reach out.
Yeah, Richmond, we don't have a lot going on in Richmond. So if you are familiar with a council member in Richmond, your help would be most welcome. And I'd be glad to talk to you, Marilyn, about that.
Yeah. And
Oh, I wish.
the
Yeah.
one that's on the consent calendar, if your friends in Pinole would be willing to either write a letter in support or even though
Right.
it's a consent calendar, it always helps to have people in the choir sing praises.
And I think it's important for you organizers to understand that we do not have a representative in our area, the east of Highway 80, the city of Richmond. We are mostly one district. They're about to redraw the lines, but we do not have a representative on the Richmond City Council. And that won't happen until November 2022. So I'm just mentioning that because it adds a big wrinkle. Our problem with the city council is they don't care what happened. In fact, most of them don't know, I swear, that there's any Richmond east of Highway 80. So it's kind of a problem. I mean, it's not kind of, it's a huge problem.
Well, you do have one representative, and that is your county supervisor, John Joya.
Oh, he's great. Yeah.
That has been very much involved in working with us.
Yeah. I would like to say, does the joint, the JPA have to be contiguous? Because, Point Richmond and Point Pinole are both very high wildfire zones.
I think we should get the entire city of Richmond aboard. I wrote to the mayor, to council members. I personally asked the mayor, Tom Bott. He says, we are cooperating with neighboring city.
Yeah.
He doesn't get the concept. So I think some of us should get together, have a presentation at the public forum at the beginning of a city council meeting, and do it and have the resolution, and hopefully it will get approved. So we need to do a little more effort into that.
Yeah.
So,
There are a couple things, and I think John and I'd be happy to work with you on it. you know, you can use, there's a picture of Coffee Park as an example of why the fires in the WUI really affect the entire community, given the kind of winds. So we can use that as an example. And the other thing is, I also serve on the board of the North Hills Community Association, which is the area that burned in the fire in 1991. And this is the 30th anniversary of that fire. So the North Hills Community Association next week is going to launch on its webpage, you know, information about that called Community Comeback, because the community came back in 1991 and we're coming back from COVID. And we are going to be launching videos of survivors of the fire, not just the residents, but firefighters, the city manager, a city council member. And the videos are different lengths, but when you see them, you get a real feel for what it's like to have been in that fire, which is what's missing from now. People know there was a big fire, but they don't feel it with their gut. So that might be helpful. The first two that are going to be launched are Dee Rosario, who was a firefighter with East Bay Regional Parks. And when he says the fire was so hot, you could feel the heat coming up from your steel-toed boots. And then he describes how the fire was going from house to house to house from the gutters. I mean, you know, he paints the picture with words. And then you have Henry Gardner, who talks about what it was like to be a city manager and to pick up the pieces afterwards, and knowing that if the wind hadn't changed, the whole city would go. You know, so that might be something you can share with them ahead of time before you meet with them, so they get you appeal to their emotions besides the facts. So we're happy to help you put something together to really make a impact.
A point. Yeah.
Maybe we can use these slides actually. Right now, City Council is on Zoom, so maybe some of us can share those 3 minutes and have a presentation there. Rebecca, I see your hands up. Go ahead, please.
I just wanted to mention that Jen Yoke, or what it's YOKE, was recently hired to as the manager for safety in Richmond. And I just wondered if you've been in touch with him. If not, I can just send you his contact number.
That'd be great. Thank
Yes.
you.
I have sent him emails. I put him in our community mailing list. I tried to call him. I did everything. I haven't been able to reach him. If you have contact with him, please say hi to him and say I'm waiting to hear back from him. We would like to have him at the Zoom gathering and just share our concerns and everything. It's an awesome idea to get in touch with him. I haven't been able to. I sent at least 6 emails to him so far.
Well, I'll email him and CC you so that you can have his contact address.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
So Hala, I'll help with that.
Thank
too.
you. I appreciate
Yeah.
it. It's very important to be in touch with the manager of the Office of Emergency Services.
And you know, copying Tom Butt will help. Or the fire chief, the new fire chief we haven't met yet. We have a whole bunch of new people.
Do we have a permanent fire chief yet?
Apparently he started, let me go research that. He was supposed to start mid-June.
I don't think if we have one yet.
Yeah, I think that's an acting chief.
Yeah.
Oh, still? He was supposed, oh, well, let me do my homework.
No, unfortunately, we don't have a permanent one in place yet.
No.
So, yeah, that's another issue with our community. But we understand here in Richmond, we have to be a little more active and get the city council and mayor to approve that resolution. We'll work on it, John and Sue and Jerry. Jerry, would you like to add something? You're muted. Please unmute yourself.
Sue covered the JPA very well, and it's a pretty simple idea, but hard to get established. The major problem that I see is there is no plan for the East Bay. There are 2 counties. They do community wildfire protection plans, but they're not very helpful documents. So the issue is to develop a plan and then deal with CEQA. You can't just do a plan. You've got to deal with the environmental impacts of the plan. And that's the main thing that the JPA has to do. Unfortunately, the Coastal Conservancy gave the two resource conservation districts that are basically rural districts $400,000 to do a plan. But that was a mistake. And even Winiger believes it was a mistake. So there is a move to get the $400,000 back under some other authority. And what better than a JPA to do it? And John and Sue are going to be talking to the Coastal Conservancy about funding. And I think the Coastal Conservancy needs to support the JPA instead of the Resource Conservation Districts.
We've actually had an initial meeting with the Coastal Conservancy. It was really just a meet and greet. They were very interested in who we are and what we're trying to do. The Coastal Conservancy would be in a position to fund a JPA on a matching basis. So we would have to get money from elsewhere, and they would be interested, but we have to be in existence as a JPA first.
You have to be an entity, right? It has to be an entity that has a board of directors and can make decisions.
Yep.
And,
so actually that's an incentive for us to keep moving and get the cities and the counties and the special districts all together, because there is a pot of money out there once we get organized.
The other thing is, and I might be going a little deeper than you want to hear, but funding is very funny in California. The state divides its properties into federal responsibility areas, which is about 60% of our lands, state responsibility areas, and then local responsibility areas. And the area that we're talking about for the JPA is all local responsibility areas. That means that City of Oakland, City of Berkeley have responsibility, and CAL FIRE does not. And the money for most of wildfire prevention comes through CAL FIRE. And it's been a real struggle to get them to go beyond the state responsibility areas and to fund programs in the local responsibility area. And since most of our communities don't have their act together, I mean, East Bay Regional Parks has a plan. Oakland is in the process of writing one, but it's not been finalized. You know, so we're not even in a position to go after that money because you have to have a plan ready to roll. Having a JPA allows us to provide resources to smaller communities that don't have the personnel or the funds to do this kind of planning, and for us to have a collaborative, comprehensive plan for the area that we then could get funding for and actually implement. And that's what our goal is.
I should add actually that right now some cities have rules and laws for home hardening. When you sell your home, you're supposed to harden your home. Either the seller or buyer have to do it, like Pinole cities here and there. Having a JPA actually mandates it that all over the area it should be done. So we'll have a unified code for home hardening, vegetation management, and things like that.
Well, actually, that's a state law that you have to, when you sell your house, you have to either have done it or make it clear.
No, it's a state law that you state if you know anything about it or not. It's a form that people just sign without anything. But in certain cities, it is the law that either the seller has to do it before transaction or shortly after the buyer has to do it. But only a few cities have it, not all over. Like Richmond doesn't have it yet, but Pinole does.
Good. You're ahead of some of us.
Yes.
Would you do me a favor? If you can send me a link to that, I'd like to see it.
Sure, I'll share it with you.
Just, send me an email. I'd like to see it.
Yeah, El Cerrito also has it, and as well as Pinole, and I'm pretty sure the MOFD has that in place now.
Yeah, it's a state law. Yeah.
Yeah, but
well, the inspection part apparently is not, and so Richmond is doing nothing. And I can tell you, they're selling houses with juniper all over in my community. So hasn't happened here.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Any other questions? Any other words? John, I have one more question. With the pace we're going right now, when do you think we'll have a JPA in place?
That's a good question. We've been at this a year and a half, and it may be another year and a half until we get to the point where we actually have an organization. It's a slow process. And in fact, one of the things that the people at the Coastal Conservancy said to us, they gave us some other examples, and they talked about how slow the process is. But we are very determined. We've got a good list of endorsees. We just have to keep plugging away. And we're glad to be at this meeting and see people here who are willing to spend part of their dinner hour talking about wildfire prevention. It's very important.
It is very
Our
important.
hope is that these resolutions will be passed in the next month or two, and that in the fall, we can actually start sitting around the table and hammering it out.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I would like to especially thank you all for educating us and our community. And 94803 Emergency Preparedness Alliance is learning a lot from you all. And I'm sorry you've been through the Oakland fire and everything, but thank you for sharing your wisdom and knowledge and activism with us. We are grateful.
I'd like to invite you, if you would like to attend, I'll put our web address, but the Oakland Firesafe Council meets once a month on Zoom. Saturdays, usually at 10:30 to 12. It's usually the third Saturday of the month. Sometimes we switch it around. You're welcome to come. And even though some of the things we talk about are Oakland oriented, you learn a lot. And the people who come to our meetings are smart cookies like Jerry and John and other people who haven't left their professional expertise out the door when they come to the table. So I'm going to put our website on the chat, and also we have an e-newsletter that comes out about once a week, and you can sign up for that, and that's very helpful too.
Actually, Marilyn just put it on the chat, I believe.
Thank you.
Oakland
And
Firesafe
we
Council,
ask,
yeah.
when that comes out, pass it on to your friends, because we just want to get the word out to people.
Okay, when I share the recording with the community, I'll share that information too.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Very
and the other information you can share is the JPA website as well, which is eastbaywildfirejpa.org.
It's up there.
Yep.
Thank you, Marilyn, for keeping us on point.
Oh, Marilyn's already got it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so happy actually that we have found each other, and at least at grassroots level, we are doing this for the JPA, and we hope at the authorities level, they'll get connected and we do form a JPA soon.
And
Hopefully.
one thing I want to add is there's an example of a JPA down in San Diego where it was not for wildfire, it was for something else, but they had a citizens advisory committee. And our hope is that this JPA will have a role for the citizens, groups like ours, to participate.
That'd be wonderful.
Technically, it is municipal jurisdictions or governmental bodies, but it's so important to have our input because we live it, and as Oakland has found out, we actually add to their knowledge base, and we can be very good partners, sometimes providing constructive criticism, but for the most part being partners and making sure that what we're doing is good. So our hope is that as this gets hammered out, there will be a role for citizens groups.
That'd be great. So the group who started this group of, pushing for JPA can establish that initial advisory committee. That'd be awesome.
I'm so glad that you guys have this kind of expertise, because working government systems is for novices or people who have intentionally avoided that sort of thing. It's really quite overwhelming.
Yes.
Well, fortunately, John and I have experience in that, as does Lisa Jacobs, who was an aide to one of our council members, and I used to be an aide to a council member and an aide to the mayor of Oakland. John used to provide consulting services to them, and so we do know our way around. It helps.
Yeah, we are very lucky to have you guys.
Well,
Yep.
Thank you all. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you. We really appreciate your time, your activism, and sharing your knowledge with us. And we'll be in
Bye-bye.
touch.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a
Bye-bye.
nice evening. Bye, everyone.